Hi, Catherine. How are you?
Hey Abby, good. How are you doing
I
today?
totally switched it on us. You're supposed to say hi
You're
first.
keeping it fresh. I love
Yes,
it.
love
I
it.
love it.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so today, Abby, will you introduce our guest?
Yes, we want to welcome Gabby. Wait, I'm gonna pronounce it wrong. Masseri.
Missouri.
Masseri. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Gabby Masseri, which I should know because I went to high school with her and her
It's okay
husband.
you don't though, because Michael changed his last name, so you know it as
Oh,
Small.
you're right. Oh my gosh. Well,
Yeah.
so
So
I
it's
was like,
okay.
wait, why is this not rolling
There's
off
a
the tongue?
path.
Okay, okay. But anyways, we are so excited to have her because we were just talking and she's literally our true target audience, like fresh new mom. She has an 11-week-old Mila who's here with us today. And we're just so excited to hear her postpartum story and anything you want to share about your feeding journey.
Yeah, thanks. I'm so excited to be on here. I've listened to a ton of your episodes and I just find it so interesting and helpful as a new mom to hear other people's journeys.
Oh, good. So, why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself, your family, like where you were at, maybe going into motherhood. Happy Mother's Day, by
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, happy Mother's Day as well to you, Abby. Yeah, so it's interesting. So my husband is a urologist. So he's been in his residency and I also work at the hospital that he works at too. So we both work at UF Health Shands Hospital. And I'm in marketing though. So I don't have a healthcare background directly, but I'm a marketing manager there. So we've both been around healthcare a ton, obviously. We've been here in the Gainesville area for 5 years. UF Health stands as a, level one NICU, extremely amazing hospital. Feel lucky to both have delivered there and worked there and everything like that. So that kind of I think played the role into like the why I gave birth the way I did and like my whole birth journey and the feeding journey beyond that. So I can just talk about like start from birth and
yes,
go forward if you want.
Yes, definitely
go for
start
it.
with
Go
birth.
for it.
Sure. So basically, I had a really easy pregnancy. I felt so lucky. Like I wasn't sick at all. Like I had a very easy pregnancy. And I also feel like that my providers played a role in that. They were just very chill. My OBGYN is just she's actually the interim chair here now, and she's just like so chill and awesome and like just such a professional. And he taught Michael, which was so funny. So like she knew him and everything. And then also a huge part of this is one of our best friends that Michael went to medical school with is an OBGYN attending here, and she actually delivered Mila. And
That's
it
so
was,
cool.
one of our best friends, and that played a huge role into like my delivery. So basically, she wasn't even working that day, and she just kind of came in, and I had like a very concierge experience because she was just in my room the whole day, and we were just like hanging out, and she was monitoring me, and very very like it was like a very like elite experience. I you're not gonna get that anywhere you go really. It just happened to work out. But I would say that I started having contractions like the day before, the day before I went into the hospital, and it was the day after I had gotten my membrane sweep. And so I knew like that was potentially coming, but they weren't like super regular. But I was just like I already knew I was gonna have back labor because I had an anterior placenta and I have pre-existing back condition. So I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be tough, like this labor, like the contractions. So my doctor, my friend Erica, Dr. Erica Wirt, she came to my house and did another
Oh wait,
membrane
I
sweep that
know
night.
her. I went to school with
Yeah,
her too at UF. Oh my gosh.
yeah. She
That's
was
amazing. I didn't know she
yeah.
became an OBGYN. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
she is the best. She's such an amazing human.
That's so
But she
cool.
came to my house and did another membrane sweep and got me dilated from 1 to 3 centimeters that night. And then that whole night, I was like in contractions, like terrible contractions. And I woke Michael up at 4 o'clock and I was like, let's go to the hospital.
Oh my
Um,
gosh. That's amazing though that you got to kind of get started at home and like you knew you were
mhm.
progressing already before you even left your house.
Exactly. So, I mean, because they tell you, like, I mean, they tell you don't go in until you can't talk through the contractions.
Oh,
Michael drove. I think my favorite part of the story is Michael drove to the hospital with the emergency brake on in the car,
Oh my
like
gosh.
not realizing it. which is hilarious because he was just like so stressed. It's so funny because when you're in healthcare, like you think like you're calm, but like when it's your person, it's
Your
like
brain
not.
goes out the
Different.
window.
But I got admitted, thank God. Got an epidural. I like wanted an epidural. I wanted a medicated pregnancy just because I knew my back was like, my contractions were so bad, like so strong, and that kind of played a part later into this. But my epidural was hard because I have a back problem and they had to do it twice. And so because the first time, like they couldn't get it in the vertebrae, which I knew they weren't going to. Michael's looking at them like about to like say something to the doctor and be like, make the attending do it. And finally the attending just took over instead of the resident and did it. But it was a complicated one, so I don't blame the resident.
Was it hard, like navigating, like knowing people at the hospital and all of that part?
Well, really? Yes, because part of that was like when I got into triage, like I was 3 centimeters. They don't like to admit you until you're 4 centimeters dilated normally, and I was 3. But I like was having terrible labor. I was like, I'm not going home, and so we started dropping Erica's name. Like Erica's gonna be here. She's coming, and then they admit it.
Like, amazing. Kind of like pros and cons, probably.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And then like the person like coming off of night shift was my husband's, one of his attendings on the urological services wife. So like we knew a lot of the people in there. But anyway, once I got the epidural, I was like chilling all day. This is like at 8:00 in the morning. I got that, and I ended up, kind of laboring all day, but not really, not really feeling it because I had the epidural. I didn't feel it at all. And it was my mom and my husband, and we had music playing. It was a very calm birth, and her heart rate kept decelerating throughout the day. But Erica was in the room with me, so like it was because my contractions were so strong, and like it just like was squeezing her so much that her heart rate kept decelerating. So like we had to change my position a few times. And I could do it myself. I was very mobile, even though we had the epidural. It was like the perfect amount of epidural. And then also, they had to give me, on the second time this happened, they had to give me some kind of medication. I don't know what it's called, but in my leg to help slow the contractions. But I never got Pitocin because I never needed it. My contractions were just so strong on their own. And the 2 times she decelled was when Michael left the room and then when my mom left the room. So then we said that they couldn't leave the room because she wanted them there.
That's really sweet. I love that.
Yeah. So around 5:00, like, I was still like only like 6 centimeters dilated. So Erica's like, okay, I'm going to be here all night. So she like took over night shift, like to cover the whole service instead of just being there for me. So she was actually getting paid for what she was doing. And then because she thought she was going to be there all night. And then 45 minutes later, I was 9 centimeters dilated. So I was ready to push. And during the labor, like we knew this might happen because of the previous decels, but like like they were getting the operating room ready, like to have a C-section, because they were getting the vacuum ready, the C-section room ready, like whatever interventions needed. But Erica was so calm through all of this, and she was like, Gabby, it's okay. Like, and it's so nice to like have that person, like your friend, like there, like who you trust so much, delivering you, because I think that like she trusted me, I trusted her to like know when the time was to like escalate further if we needed to. I think maybe any other doctor in that situation who didn't have that relationship with me would have made me have a C-section. But I pushed her out in 10 minutes, like just nonstop pushing for 10 minutes, and I got her out and so she came out, she screamed one scream, they put her on my chest for a second, and then they just took her right to the bedside to like help her, because she needed to get liquid sucked out of her lungs because she was just like so contracted. But she was fine. Her first APGAR score was like a 7, and that was like low, like in my head. I was like, ugh. And like Erica's looking at me, she's like looking at her, looking at me as she's like, stitching me up or doing whatever she was doing down there. And I'm like looking at her, I'm like, Erica, is everything okay? Because I made Michael go over there. My mom was with me. And she was looking, she was Gabby, and she was all very honest with me, because she was just, she knew I wanted all the information. And she was like, it's at 60% her oxygen, and she was like 70, 80, 90, and like kept going up within 10 seconds. So I was like, thank God. And she was fine. But I do think all of that, like now, like, and I feel like I've learned this from almost listening to your podcast, played a role into like her like latching the first time,
because you were kind of stressed in that moment. Yeah,
because she was stressed and I was stressed, like after that like delivery. And Michael and my mom were way more stressed than I was, because I was just like so focused on everything. And I knew she was okay, and because I really just trusted everybody in the room. But she immediately, like, they put her on my chest and like trying to get her to feed like in that first like 20 minutes. And it was a golden hour. I did have a golden hour, and that was like part of like what I wanted, which was nice. But she immediately like needed a nipple shield. Like they just gave me one right in the room. She could, and
What
it was
made
more so, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Sarah. I was just gonna say, what made you know that she needed a nipple shield or
I
ask
didn't
for?
know. They like she would not like initially like latch like right when she was on, and they just looked at my nipples and they were like, you have really really shallow nipples. Like it's not hitting the roof of her mouth. So the nipple shield like it helped extend my nipple to like hit the roof of her mouth. And then as soon as I got that, she did nurse, and it did help. And that was just like right in the labor and delivery room. When I went to, this is like so late at night now. Now it's like 11 o'clock at night, Um, but the next day I had a lactation consultant visit the room, and I like requested that and knew that that was an option, and I wanted that to happen. And again, like being in the medical around the medical world, like I knew what my resources were, which was super helpful. So like I knew that that was something that I wanted someone to come and help me. I didn't know about nipple shields though. Like I didn't know that was even a thing until they just threw one in the room with me. But she looked at it and she was like, how big is this nipple shield? And I said, I think they said 24 millimeters. And I was like, I had measured myself at home already for like a pump, and I was only like 19. So she like found like the last 20 millimeter flan or like nipple shield in the building and like gave it to me. And that's what I used to get her to feed for the first 2 full weeks of her life,
Wow.
2.5 weeks of her life. And like I definitely needed that, and I don't think I would have been able to continue breastfeeding without that. But I was determined to like not use it, because trying to find a nipple shield in the middle of the night is truly like the most annoying thing in the world.
Because they're clear, guys. They do have a blue
Yeah,
one. There's a blue one that you can buy, but like, yeah, they're usually clear, and it's so frustrating.
And floppy.
there's clear floppy, and it's like late. It's like you can't find it, and then when you have a dog hair sticks to literally everything that's silicone. Like, and I'm just like, oh my god, like I'm gonna lose my mind with this nipple shield.
You probably
Um,
had like went through like 10 of them, I bet.
yeah, and it was just, but it was what was allowed me to feed her, but it was super painful, and like I knew it shouldn't have been painful. Like I was really like upset. Like that first, it was really like the first 2 weeks of using it. It got better, and I can talk about that, but that first couple of days of using it, it was almost like I dreaded feeding her because I knew how painful it was going to be, and it was like that. You don't want that feeling. Like you're supposed to be a time of like connection and bonding, and like I was like very determined that I was going to be breastfeeding. Like I wanted to breastfeed. Like I just was like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
figure this out. So I was doing it through the pain, and but yeah. So but then on her first pediatric, so that was a Friday night. I had her on a Friday, so she couldn't go into the doctors until Monday. And she had lost like 10 ounces, and so like the pediatrician put like the fear of God in me,
Oh,
because I was like just feeding her on demand when she wanted to feed, but that wasn't every 2 hours, and she was like, no, you have to feed her every 2 hours, so she has to get her weight up.
okay.
And then I had an appointment the next day with a lactation consultant, because that's something that they did at that first appointment. She was like, let's get you in with a lactation consultant immediately. IBCLC, her name is Mary Reingart. She was a pediatric nurse practitioner before she was an IBCLC. Amazing woman, literally amazing.
It's so amazing that your pediatrician referred. A lot of times at that visit, they say, "Oh, they're losing weight," and they put the fear of God in you, but then they like make you scared that you just start supplementing. And like, I'm glad that they first said, "Go see a lactation
Yeah, and
consultant."
cause I told her, I was like, I'm not doing formula. I mean, it was I wasn't doing formula. I did not want to do
That's
formula if I
right.
didn't have to, because my supply was
Good.
overflowing. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
my had supply had come in like that day, and like I was like, I know, and I had collected colostrum before, so like I was feeding her that, so like she had a
Milk.
ton of food. It wasn't that, it was just like her getting it, like the
Getting it.
mechanism per se.
Yeah.
Um, and I knew it
And it
Well,
wouldn't have been
takes time
pain.
to work it
Yeah, and the best thing is my pediatrician office is across the street from my house, and that's where I saw the IBCLC too. It's like in that same,
out.
it's the
Amazing.
same location. So she got me. me and Michael went to that appointment. Like, she taught us like how she could be latching better, like what to use. She used the My Breast Friend pillow. That's what I think the brand name is. And literally, I will never use a boppy ever again. Like, after I used that in that appointment, I was like, we need to get this immediately. Like, it changed the way I fed. Like, that sounds so crazy, but it is so true. Like, I cannot feed her without it.
So much of the positioning, at least when they're little in the beginning, is about that. And the My Breast Friend kind of straps around you so you can kind of get
Strapped
it.
around you. It's just like so much easier to get her to get in the position that she needs to be. Because again, like a lot of the problem with me initially is that it was me, like my anatomy wasn't long enough for her to like root. So I needed her to learn. But anyway, that first appointment was amazing, and that's what got me through those 2.5 weeks of using the nipple shield to feed her. And like the next week when she came back, she had gained like a pound, like literally like nonstop better. And like we looked haggard. It was almost like a comedy. Like because we're up every 2 hours feeding her, and Michael's getting out to change a diaper, so I can just feed her. It was so great because he had a 4 weeks, and then he has 2 more weeks that he's using, um, which was great. But it was hilarious because she looked at me. She's like, "You guys can just feed on demand. You don't have to do every 2 hours."
You don't have to do this anymore. See, and that's the thing. It changes so frequently because some people, yeah, if you start being cue-based in the beginning, but the baby's too sleepy, then it's like, ugh, now try to do the 2 hour thing. But then as they improve, you can trust them more.
Yeah, I think she looked at like the dark circles on my eyes. She's like, "It's okay. You can chill."
Either one, man.
So after those 2.5 weeks of me, and I was trying every so often to not use the nipple shield to see if she would latch without it, and that's kind of how I was just like testing it. Um, and I also, during this time at that first appointment, my IBCLC had recommended or had prescribed me a steroid cream for my nipples, and that also got me through this. Like it just like I would use that after every feed, and it literally like saved me. And I didn't even know that like was a thing that I could use until she told me. But that like saved me as well for those first couple weeks of feeding her. And then when I transitioned off of the nipple shield, continuing to use it until I felt like I didn't need it.
Yeah. Did the steroid cream reduce the pain?
Yeah.
Okay.
It reduced the pain, and like while she was learning to latch, while I was learning, etc. And really when it like did a 360-degree turn was when I was able to start latching her without the nipple shield. I made a second appointment with my IBCLC, and I was like, okay, now she's off the nipple shield. Like now, like I need help because it's still a little bit painful. Like I need help optimizing this without the nipple shield now. And then I went back to her, and it was a session with just me, her, and Mila at that point. And it was, again, she just helped me like figure out the positioning, how I needed to like push her up onto the boob, and the different ways to hold her, and like what's going to work best for her anatomy. And before this, on that first appointment, she did an oral exam on Mila, and like she did have a mildly restrictive posterior tongue tie. And we talked about like, do we feel like that's going to need to be taken care of, like, or do we need like to get clipped or whatever, or do we feel like we can work through it? And she said, it's really flexible. She's like, feeling around with her mouth. She's really flexible. She goes, let's see how you do these next couple weeks without the nipple shield. And by that next 2 weeks mark, we were feeding fine, and even to this day we're feeding fine, and we felt like we never needed to go further with that, because she feeds fine with it. Fine now without with that tongue tie still. And it was so funny because I look at my own mouth and I was like, I think I have a tongue tie.
Sometimes I think that about myself. Like I'll wake up in the middle of the night and realize my tongue's not on the roof of my mouth, and I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so many people I think do have it undiagnosed, and it didn't, affect things, or it didn't affect it enough to warrant a release or whatever. But yeah, there's so many different ways to handle all of this. So I like how she just like diagnosed it, but then well, we don't diagnose as IBCLCs, but like she pointed it out, but she said like, let's make a plan and keep working through it.
Exactly. And I asked her, I was like, do I need to get that released? And she said, that's when I was like, she was like, let's see. She goes, it's so flexible. Like, even though she has it, it's not a tight one. So like, I think she can learn through it, and she did. But it was also so funny. Even to this day, she latches better on my left side than my right. But I have more milk on my right side, so I'm like, you have to eat on the right side. You can't not. So I
Mhm.
like, and I also felt like this is interesting because I have a huge group of friends in Gainesville. They're all moms, and they were all. I was the last one to have a baby, and it was so amazing getting to learn from them and their wealth of knowledge, and like knowing, what their feeding journeys were. Some of them had twins, some of them were preemies, some of them, all the range of babies you could possibly have. So, I when I was using the nipple shield, I would ask, like, what brand did you use, or like, did something help you use it better? And someone was like, are you turning it inside out to then put it on? I was like, oh no, I didn't know that. Like, there were so many things that like I used my like community to like learn about with feeding her, which was super helpful.
Amazing. I want to have
Yeah.
all your friends on now if they want to.
Yeah.
I know, they're amazing. I have one friend who's a pelvic floor therapist.
Nice. That
Her
would be
company is, yeah, Nap Time PT, but she did pelvic floor physical therapy on me to help prep for birth, which is why I think I could have pushed her out in 10 minutes and only had like a very, very minor tear. But because I feel like because I went to her to like do some like body work beforehand, and like it's just amazing, like all the things that you don't know about until you have somebody who specializes in it to like help you navigate it.
So
But
that's
true.
amazing. That's so helpful.
yeah,
And exactly what we always talk about, like taking a village, like just having like other people around you that you've seen work through the challenges is like exactly
yeah,
what
and,
why we
and but like something I do recognize is like I feel like I'm very privileged to like know these people and to know what resources to even look for being in the healthcare community. Like I feel like when you're not around it, or you really are a first time mom and you don't have friends that have had kids before, you don't have the people to look for. So really, I have a good friend who's pregnant now, who is so good about like like she's going to all these classes and doing all these different things. She went to the La Leche League meeting. Like she's like 6 months pregnant and she's doing this because she's trying to find that community that
so
she knows who can help her when she does have the baby.
Smart. Yeah, but if you already have that built in prior to, then that's awesome as well. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And like, with feeding her, like I thought I was gonna have to pump a ton, like because I wanted her to learn how to feed from a bottle, because I do have to go back to work on Friday. I'm like getting towards the end of my maternity leave, which is sad, and like I'm freaking out a bit because it's just been me and her. And she's had a bottle here and there, like because we've been looking for a house, and during that time we were in and out of the car. I had my sister come with me, and she would give her a bottle while we're looking at the houses.
nice.
But it was all from the Haka. Like I never, like I pumped twice. I think I pumped twice in these 12 weeks, and everything.
Wow.
But I have a stash of breast milk like yay high, like because of the Haka, just like let down from the
Perfect.
other side. I feed her on one side, and I switch back and forth each feed.
Hmm.
Wait, so the Haka, is that Abby? Can you talk about that, or
Yes, let
Gabby,
me
both
talk
of
about
you?
the Haka. Okay, so
Yeah,
it works for some people like this. Um, there's different versions of the Haka, but the
yes,
one I think
I
you're
have both.
thinking of is the pump one that like is long and it hangs off kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's actually truly it is a breast pump because it creates suction and then it pulls.
Mhm.
So the one I'll just say for our listeners, sometimes it can cause an oversupply in the beginning because it
Yeah,
can
I didn't use that one
start
in the
feeding on
beginning.
one side. You did what?
I did not use that one in the beginning. I used the
Use
ladybug.
the collectors. Okay, so the ladybugs, or there's a Boone Trove is another brand,
Yeah.
but there's like these little more passive milk collectors that can be good when you're like leaking from the other side anyways, and then you can collect milk, and then like Gabby said, you never have to pump. And if you're getting just collecting your extra letdowns, it's so helpful because then you don't have to find another time in your day to pump. So just with the actual pump Haka, just keep in mind that it's actually also a pump. But
Yeah, for sure. I think I probably use the ladybug 3 times more than I use the actual hand pump,
nice.
because I only use that if I like feel so engorged that like I need to like let down, and that's like if she like sleeps for longer than I expect her to or something like that. But
Yeah.
the ladybug, like I use almost every time. I just like put it in my bra and like let the letdown go itself, because it's better than it going on
On a
a
rip cloth,
breast
and then you
pad.
don't get to use it. Yeah,
Yeah. And I
that's
just
awesome.
had so much of that letdown, especially in my first couple weeks when my supply was like trying to figure itself out. That most of the collection I have in the freezer now is from those first like 5 weeks.
And talking about going back to work, I love to tell people, they're always shocked when I say this, but it seems like maybe you know this. Like, you don't have to have this humongous freezer stash. The fact, like, when you said, like, yay, hi, this much milk, like, that's all you really need. You need, like, 3 ounces per feeding for the amount of time that you're going to be gone. And then the next day, when you go to work, you're going to pump. So then you'll
Exactly.
replenish.
That's what I was thinking. I like stopped because I wanted just to try the pump, because I didn't want to go to work not even knowing how to use it. So
Right.
I used it like
A few
I
times.
think I've used it literally 2 times, but like I wanted to just make sure I knew how it functioned and like what
Yes.
settings worked best for me. So I just did
Mm-hmm.
it really for that reason. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna use it obviously when I go back to work. And it's nice that my office has like a specific 2 rooms dedicated to lactation.
Awesome.
So like I just had to make, I made appointments to like on my calendar, so it's just my room, like no one else is in there,
Nice.
and it has a fridge dedicated for breast milk and everything, and like a nice big recliner chair and a table and chairs if you want to eat lunch. It's a very, very,
Wow,
it's a
go
healthcare
Shands. These
facility.
are at
So
Shands, right? At the hospital.
yeah, I'm not at the hospital. We're on an off-site building, but like it's
Okay.
part of UF Health. So like it's just they were very it's very cognizant. Like they're very cognizant about it, which is so nice.
And then also, I was gonna say it's good that you've introduced the bottle so that she's at least. We usually say do that around like 4 to 6 weeks before they get more preferring, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's why I was so nervous. I was like, please, please, please take a bottle. Like I was so nervous, but like I think it was even in that the pediatrician was like, and I think my IBCLC was like, don't don't try not to introduce the bottle before 4 weeks if you can help
Yeah,
it. And that's
you can
exactly what we
establish
did.
breastfeeding, and then also learn the skill of bottle feeding before you have to do it every for work.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And luckily, like when I gave her that bottle, I think around like 4 or 5 weeks, she just took right to it, which was I was grateful. So
Good.
um and it is nice. Like I think there was like 1 or 2 times where like I was just so exhausted. My postpartum was honestly like out of all the things of pregnancy, birth, postpartum, I think that first 2 weeks, 3 weeks is like the hardest for me. So just like even having I think I did give her a bottle one time in like that first three and like on that third week, because I was just like so exhausted, and Michael was just like, let me just feed her. And it worked, and it was fine, and it was, she never refused one way or another. I feel like I need to give her a bottle like this week, because I feel like she hasn't had one in a while now, and I'm like,
Yes,
she's
give her a
like,
few.
I'm like, you have to have one. I said you have one
Give her
twice on
like
Friday. Like I need you to learn.
Yeah, give her like I would say I'm not to give you unsolicited advice, but like
No, please,
maybe
please.
maybe one a day just to kind of like warm up. Just even if you only do like 2 ounces and then you still breastfeed her, like just be like, hey, just so you know, Mila, this is coming. Like get used to
Yeah,
it a little bit.
yeah. So I need to do that, and then like, but it's so nerve wracking when you like basically exclusively breastfeed to like trust somebody else to feed them, even when it's your own husband or your parents or anything. It's just like, oh, like this is like mine and her thing. Like I don't know, like it's just, and especially as a first time mom, it's just like, oh my god, you don't know
So
her
true.
isms, like
I
her
would
Yeah.
isms
say
as much as I do.
you if you feel more comfortable, you can even be the one to give her a bottle in the beginning. Like
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
But
But
that
obviously you'll
makes
build
sense.
that trust.
yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Like you have been her primary caregiver and will be, so you'll have that attachment and kind of the emotions associated with that. I can totally see
Yeah.
that.
And just
We
like
should
even trying to get her on a schedule, because it's like, okay, because it's so, I mean, like to me, like getting a baby on a schedule is like an effort that's like not gonna work. Like when they're this little, it's just like, it's valiant, but it's not gonna work. So
yeah.
I'm like trying to get her to just at least have somewhat of a like, okay, you're gonna eat around here, you're gonna sleep around here, just very loose, because I want to be able to feed her as soon as I get home. So like I don't,
Yes.
she only has to eat. I think it's going to be like my goal is to feed her twice, and I told my husband, I was like, you might have to give her like a small portion, like around like 4 right before I get home, but then I'll feed her the rest when I get home. You don't need to give her
And
a
she'll
full
adapt well
feed.
to that since she's been so on demand. Like if you just give her a little to hold her over till you get there, then like, yeah,
Exactly.
And she's so instinct driven right now. Like she knows when to
Mm-hmm.
that when she's done breastfeeding. So like just kind of trusting her in that way. I think that's such a good point about the scheduling thing.
Yeah.
There's really no
It's
point putting it in.
Yeah,
But
and like for me, like my husband's so good with it because I like we learned like paced bottle feeding as opposed to like her going like that, and so he does that good. But the story is I'm going back, and I'm like being such a crybaby about this, like going back to work, but like I'm only going back to work full time for 2 weeks, and then I go
and
back to part time, and so like I will be home part time with her.
mm-hmm. Nice.
So like yeah, she'll get a bottle here and there from like somebody whoever's watching her, but for the most part she still will be breastfed.
Oh,
But I
that's
told
awesome.
Michael, I was like, you know how to do it, but like I need to teach, my mom and my dad who are coming to watch her. Thank very grateful for my family, but coming to watch her for one of those weeks, like what pace bottle feeding is, because otherwise they're just gonna like go like this.
that's like that's the job of a SLP in the NICU. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
that's what you're about to do. It's
Teach
so
that. That's amazing.
important. Yeah, to teach good feeding practices. That's awesome.
Because it's like, I know, good thing I've heard some podcasts talk about this before, but telling like when you're teaching people like caregivers, grandparents, nannies, like it can feel weird because they're like, you feel like, okay, obviously they've fed a baby before, but you can be like, hey, my SLP recommended or my IBCLC recommended, or you could say like they have this new way of bottle feeding now that's just like good for the baby's swallowing. Like, you
Yeah.
can do it like as if it's like new information to you too, so that you feel like you're not like telling people what to do,
Yeah,
even though,
the way I even did it with Michael, I was like, oh my god, look at this amazing video I saw on TikTok or Instagram, like of how
there
they
you
feed
go.
the baby.
Show them.
It works.
Exactly.
Also, the visual representation is super helpful too.
Yeah.
Oh
Wait,
my
can we
gosh.
go like not to go on a sidebar, but can we go a little bit into paced bottle feeding? Because honestly, I don't
Yeah.
think that we've discussed it
Talked about it. You're right. We
on the
haven't mentioned it.
podcast. Um,
You want to discuss it,
Abby,
Abby? Because
you want to
I
tell
only
it?
done it. I've
I
only done
can
it like twice.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's true. You haven't given a lot of bottles yet. Okay, so the idea is that when babies are swallowing, if we have them like in the crook of our elbow, um, and like just like you said, like having the bottle vertically pointing down their throat, that is like as if we were like chugging, like after a long run, like really chugging water,
Guzzling.
guzzling down. And so that makes them kind of have to work hard when they're new, they're trying to coordinate breathing, sucking, swallowing. So it's better if, breastfeeding is like how they're designed to feed. So even if you are bottle feeding, we want to mimic breastfeeding. So turn them on their side, like how they would be belly to belly with the mom. But positionally, if they're in your lap, you can put them up on your knees. Like if your knees are up in front of you, you can put them on their side so that you can like support their back with your forearm, and then you can hold the bottle in the other hand, kind of like you're holding a pencil if you can do it that way. But you kind of hold near the tip of the bottle. Um, and then you can really control the nipple into their mouth, point it up to their palate, which triggers their sucking reflex, and then you can kind of easily get their lips to flange out around the bottle. And then the pacing comes in where you're kind of watching your baby's cues. So as you let them latch onto it, then as they're sucking, you have the nipple filled with milk. So some people make that mistake where they're like tipping it down and the nipple is not filled with milk, and then the baby's getting too much air. But you fill it up, you let them suck, and then when you see them take a pause, you kind of go down, and tip the milk down, but you leave the nipple in their mouth. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of good videos on this if you look it up online, and people will explain it. But I think it's just cool to understand, like, you're trying to get them on their side so that they're swallowing, like their neck is parallel to the ground. And then you're trying to tip the milk down to give them time to kind of coordinate breathing. And then they'll get better at doing that on their own. Like you might not have to do this forever, but it just is good, especially when they're in those early weeks or they're learning the skill of bottle feeding, to kind of not have milk spilling everywhere and not have them like puffing and puffing
Mm-hmm.
or like pushing it away. Those are all signs that maybe they want a slower flow or they want it paced more. stuff like
Yeah,
that.
and I feel like it's more just natural to like the way she would breastfeed because
Mhm.
she's on her side, she takes breaks, she doesn't like just guzzle for a straight 30-minute session. She takes breaks and breathes and unlatches and relatches. So it's very like it's more natural as to like what she is used
Yeah.
to, I think.
And it's also more responsive, so it's like called, it also can be called just responsive bottle feeding. And it's really good for the mom or whoever's feeding the baby to get used to looking at the baby's cues, because then when you start solid foods, you do the same thing. And so this whole time, whether you're breastfeeding, bottle feeding, solid food eventually, like we want to be listening to the baby and showing them that like, okay, when you're done, we can take a break. It also helps them develop their satiety cues. Like they can listen if they're not just guzzling it down, they can kind of pause and be like, okay, I'm full now. And then you kind of know when they're done because they can push it out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It-
So it's
and
just good
Right,
practices.
and it's so important back to like our episode on infant mental health and attachment in general that your baby's brain is developing and we want to give them positive experiences of these things. The baby is doing two things, trying to survive and like really building relationship with its primary caregiver.
Mhm.
So
And even with like the positioning for that, like I have like found because like I've done it maybe a couple times. Michael's honestly given her a bottle more than I have because if I'm feeding her, I'm just gonna breastfeed her. But if he actually just puts on the pillow, like the breastfeeding pillow we have,
Yeah.
and lays her on the side on that, just facing out instead of in,
Yes.
it's just easier to position the bottle that way. Then that's like very natural to what she normally does. So like that's kind of like how we've kind of done it in the past.
Yes.
that's
And that might be why she took bottles so well, because you already had so many things the same that
yeah.
like she's already
Mhm.
comfortable. Like, okay, this is feeding time. I'm comfortable with this. Um, that's something we try with like if babies are refusing bottles, or we say refusing, but really it's like they're having trouble with the bottle feeding skill for some reason.
Yeah.
Then something we'll try is like making it more similar or sometimes more different than breastfeeding, depending on the reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, trying to make it comfortable for them. And yeah,
Yeah, changing
Yeah.
as little
So
variables as you can. So if you're going to change the feeder, keep everything else the same, or et cetera.
great way to say it. Yes.
Mhm.
Um,
exactly. What I'm gonna tell everybody, like the people who are watching her while I'm working, is you know if she started like there's this like chart that they give you. They give you a lot of good resources too at the hospital. Like, and I have a lot of them on our fridge still. Like, and I still have the feeding one up there because like I want everybody who's watching her to know, okay, when she's doing this cue or this cue, she's probably getting hungry. So don't wait till she's screaming to warm up a
yes.
bottle. Like
Yes.
preemptively warm the bottle for her to take it. So like it's a lot more like a learning for people who don't like take care of her a lot. But I think that those resources are really helpful. So even if you're a mom who has those and you're like, oh, like I know, like don't throw them away because other people might.
Yeah, other people might need them. And
Yeah.
she's so lucky to have such a like attuned mom like you to just even be worrying about telling everyone about it, like that's such a mental load of mothers that I think
Oh yeah,
goes unnoticed, but I think it's so helpful and helps your baby transition to having other caregivers. And I feel like
yeah.
I was so nervous to leave my baby the first time, and I feel like having someone where I could like not feel crazy just telling them all the things and writing all these lists, like it does help.
Yeah, it's lucky that like the people who are watching her are my family, so they know
Yeah.
I'm type A already. So like they know that like I'm like a little crazy. So
And they can send you the pictures, they can tell you she's
yeah,
doing well. Yeah.
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 But I was
And
just talking to my mom. I was with my mom for Mother's Day yesterday. Mother's Day was, I don't know when this is airing, but Mother's Day was yesterday when we're recording this.
Mhm.
But a lot of people have told me, and like I find this to be as a type A person, this is a big compliment to me. But the most calm I've ever been in my life is being a mom. So
Oh,
like I don't know why that is, but it just is, and I do feel like that translates into like her and her energy and like how she is. And if you're calm, your baby will be calm for the most part. Not always, but for the most part.
yes. Oh my gosh. That's so true. I think unless there's
Yeah.
like a medical thing going on, like I feel like they really can feel our energy. And like, even if you're working through a struggle, like with the nipple shield in the beginning, like you sounded like you were just like, I'm taken care of. I have the resources.
Yeah.
Will figure this out,
do
even if it
this.
takes time. Like having those mantras of just like, we're going to get through this. Like, did you think breastfeeding was going to be really hard in the beginning, or were you surprised?
So my mom, so this is the other thing. Like, I feel like with the generation above us, like, mom was like, oh yeah, I just breastfed you guys. It was easy, like no
Uh,
big deal. Like, and I was like, she was like, yeah, it hurt. I was like, I'm not supposed to. Like, all these different things that you learn, like, now. But I knew, I didn't know, I really didn't know what to expect. I was really like, had all the resources. I knew, like, all the things I could do, but I didn't know what direction it was going to go. And, like, I'm not gonna, like, don't, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. That first, like I would say, even the 2 weeks using the nipple shield and the 2 weeks off the nipple shield, that first month of feeding her was exhausting and hard. And, there was nights where I was crying, and, just, this is so difficult. But if you want to breastfeed, I believe that is best. However you want to feed your child, like, feed your child however the way that you want to as a mom. But for me, I really wanted to breastfeed, so I, like, knew I could push through it. So it was like a big mental game of, like, telling myself, like, I can do it, I can do it. I have the resources I need. I have an amazing, husband, amazing partner who's helping me, like, in all the other ways that he can help me, being super supportive. I have my community. So I think just, like, kind of really sitting with yourself and telling yourself, like, if you want to do this, you can do it, is very powerful.
Yeah.
So, like, listening to your own self is, I think, really important.
So, okay, we always ask at the end, what would you tell a mom who's struggling? So is that what you would say, or what?
Yeah, listen to yourself. Like, if you, like, you know your body the best, and you know your child's best, like, innately. Like, yes, all these resources are there to help you, and I utilize so many of them. But in the end of the day, like, I feel like listening to, like, what my body was telling me, what Mila was telling me, was the most helpful. Um, so I think
Love.
that's what I would say to new moms, for sure.
Oh, yeah, you're the only one there for every single feeding, literally.
Exactly,
Wow.
exactly. You know what is best. But
Yes.
and I guess I'll just add this really quickly. I know you guys have to go soon, but Abby, you were saying that, like, so Mila, this today was day 10, and I was, like, a little bit freaking out that she hadn't pooped in 10 days. But my
Yes.
pediatrician kept saying it's very normal for breastfed babies to not have a bowel movement for, like, up to 2 weeks. And then even my mom was like, with you, like, I had a time with you where it took 10 days. And so I was, like, braced and ready to call the pediatrician today. And then, like an
Yeah.
hour before the podcast, she pooped. And then she pooped right before we started recording.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I feel like that whole side of things is a thing I've been learning myself with my daughter a lot about that, and I feel like yeah, we should do even more podcasts about that. I should
Yeah.
find some people that probably know even more than me about it, but I feel
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, like, there's a body work piece to it. There's, like you said, there's variations of normal,
Yeah.
but
Baby
uh,
body massage. And so
yeah.
I have no idea if this helped. So don't quote me on this. But
Oh,
I got prune juice and I drank it,
oh,
and I was
that could
like,
have
okay.
helped.
I was like, I hope this helps. And I, like, chugged it the last 2 days, and then today she pooped. So maybe that helps. Who
Maybe.
knows?
There we go.
There we go.
Connection.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh. Oh, well,
well,
good luck
thank
with the
you
transition
so
back
much.
to
Yeah.
work
Thank you.
and
Thank
moving
you.
and everything. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. So fresh postpartum.
Yeah.
Of course. And thank you guys for having this podcast. I mean, truly, as a new mom, like, it's so amazing hearing everybody's different, from the birth stories, their feeding journeys. Like, it's just so helpful just to even, like, take bits and pieces of it, and even, like, reflect on my own birth and her own, like, and, like, oh well, she probably has this, probably is struggling with this because of X, like, and I things I didn't even think about.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
So
Well, it's so cool to hear from, like, just like, I mean, you're in healthcare, but just like a mom,
yeah,
who's actually living it. And like we said in the beginning, you are like you're the expert right now.
the primary
Yes.
target.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we
So
were saying, like, we've had a lot of, like, SLPs on and different people on, but we really want to hear just moms who, like you, like, it
Yeah,
didn't really feel like you knew too much about breastfeeding before, and then, like, how you still were able to navigate those struggles, or even people who were like, you know what, yeah, however it ended up, like,
yeah.
so if if anyone who's listening knows someone who'd be good to have on a different story that we haven't heard before, or if any of your Gainesville friends want to come on, let us know.
Yeah, I'll definitely share.
This
I'll share it in
episode.
the group, but there's a couple people that I know, like, from my friend who's a pediatric, or no, she's not pediatric, but a pelvic floor PT. To my,
Yes.
I have a couple friends who, I had a friend who had 24-week-old twins,
Boy,
NICU 24 who are thriving now. They're 4 or 5 now who are thriving.
I want to hear her story. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
she's a nurse herself, and she's amazing. I definitely will share this and see if anybody wants to come on. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys and you keeping on doing this. I love it. So keep
Thank
going.
you, Gabby.
Awesome. Thanks so
Thank
much,
you so
Gabby.
much.
Thank you. Have a good rest of
You.
your day.
Okay, you
Bye.
too.
Bye.
Bye.